Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Let's begin. We have welcome to the January Parks Recreation Open Space Commission meeting. And if we look at our agenda, we have first item is call to order, roll call. Sid, could you handle that?
Certainly. Commissioner Abbott?
Here.
Commissioner Armendariz?
Here.
Commissioner Beal?
Here.
Commissioner Chang Frank?
Here.
Commissioner Kent?
Here.
Commissioner Price?
Here.
And Chair Martin?
Here. Thank you. Next up is approval of the minutes.
Chair, there is the reading of the land acknowledgement by the chair that needs to happen right after the roll call.
Oh, yes, thank you. That's part of that, isn't it? Yeah.
Mhm.
So following land acknowledgement statement shall be read at the beginning of each city council meeting and advisory body meeting per Albany City Council minute action, November 15, 2021. The city of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lijan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make up strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The city of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. Thank you. And so next up, we have item number 2, approval of minutes.
I'm prepared to move that we approve the action minutes from the last meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, Sid, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Armendariz?
Yes.
Commissioner Beal?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
And Chair Martin?
Yes. Okay. Next up is item 3, public comment. This is for people desiring to address the advisory body on an item that is not on the agenda. Please note that each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes. The Brown Act limits the Commission's ability to take and or discuss items that are not on the agenda. Therefore, such items are normally referred to staff for comment or to a future agenda. So, looking at the attendees, this would be the time to raise a hand to speak about something that's not on the agenda. Okay. All right, well, seeing no raised hands, let's move on to item number 4, announcements. Staff and commissioner announcements, reports, and updates of status of previous agenda items. Isabel, I know you had some things.
Yes, I can start. So I wanted to let the commission know that we've submitted the Prop 68 applications for the 7 projects that were approved. And we've submitted them to the state. And the next step is to receive the contracts from the state and for the funding of the projects. And wanted to also let you know that the Parks Master Plan is going back to council at the next meeting on Tuesday, January 18th. So Groundworks will be back to receive final comments from the council. They've made some suggested modifications, and will be I believe the item is under unfinished business, if you'd like to look at it. I think Sid also had some announcements.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Isabel. Chair Martin and commissioners, all of our facilities remain open despite the surge in COVID-19 Omicron variant. The community center and senior center are continuing their normal business hours. In-person program registration, picnic area, and tennis court reservations are still being accepted. The Senior Center has taken a pause in their in-person dining, but continue their Meals on Wheels deliveries and the pick up and go meal service. After a successful field rehabilitation period, all fields are scheduled to open for use on January the 30th. Some applications for field rentals have already been taken, and they will begin shortly after that date. The dog park continues to be evaluated and will be opened on January 28th. And I backtrack a little bit. It's January 28th that the fields will be open. Our department is excited to announce the release of our brand new 2022 Winter Spring Activity Guide. This activity guide features classes, camps, and programs that take place between January and May. And pandemic permitting, we will start up those programs according to that schedule. We have also introduced a new section at the beginning of this guide to give residents an update on recent city happenings. The guide is online on the city webpage, and registration for all programs is open. Guides will be arriving in the Albany mailboxes soon, and we did receive them at the community center today, so we'll be distributing them to all city facilities shortly. Please be sure to check it out, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements from commissioners?
I have one. I hope it's appropriate. Love the Bulb is going to have a volunteer planting day this Saturday from 2 to 4 at the library garden. And we're inviting people who have already been volunteering with Love the Bulb or others who want to come and garden to join us and help plant some new native plants there.
Okay. Other announcements? Okay, seeing none, moving on to item number 5, presentations, urban forestry update. Urban Forester John Hawkridge will provide an overview of why trees die and a review of street trees that died over the past year. Staff recommendation, information only. John, take it away.
Hi. Happy New Year, everyone. Let's see, I don't see myself, but that's okay. Oh, here. There I am. Okay, I'm just going to run through quickly a review of trees. Every year I do, or almost every year, I try to do a review. I drive through all the streets in the city and look for dead trees. And I'm just going to present that list of trees, but I'm going to start out with a little bit about how trees die and what, if anything, we could do about it. So let's see, I need to share my screen. Okay. Okay, we can see that? Yeah, good. All right, so let's start out. How trees die. Scientifically speaking, trees die because respiration terminates, and there's various reasons that respiration terminates, but respiration is the way trees circulate oxygen and carbon dioxide and water and nutrients and all that. So respiration terminates because carbohydrate production ceases, and that happens when photosynthesis stops or is interrupted, and that happens where there's an imbalance or a lack of one of several factors. So there's biotic factors, There's fungal, viral, bacterial infections. There's different parasites. There's nematodes, which are microscopic worms that will damage roots. There's different plants like mistletoe that are parasitic, allelopathic plants like eucalyptus or walnut seem to suppress other trees, other plants growing around them. And there's insect damage. There's bark beetle, there's scale, there's oak moth, and there's animal damage. There's deer and squirrel damage. And this year I'm seeing a lot of squirrel damage. And if you see trees that have the bark rubbed off and it looks like it was attacked by a bear or a deer, it's more than likely a squirrel looking for moisture in the summer when we had, everyone knows we had a very dry summer, and that's where they find moisture. Sometimes they rip the bark off and get to the tender, moist parts of the tree. So that's been a problem. There's abiotic factors, soil structure, meaning the soil's capacity to hold water and oxygen. There's either too much sun for certain species, there's too little sun for some species. There's soil compaction. The location where the tree is are we growing a redwood tree in a 27-inch planting strip, or I'm exaggerating, but we need to have the right tree in the right place. Otherwise the tree's struggling and stressing out. Basically all urban trees experience some sort of stress, being that they're in an urban setting and they're planted in a small strip along the curb. The sun, wind, water, temperature, water table in the summer, and this summer especially, I think with the drought again, our water table, I believe, has lowered. It's not at the same level that it normally would be. Hopefully that's changed with all the rain, but a lot of the mature trees, roots they're staying alive without being watered all summer because they're able to absorb some moisture that's coming from our water table. And there's air pollution in urban settings, cars and highways and all that. And there's smoke, not too bad this year. The previous year, we had some pretty bad smoke days here from the fires. Let's see. Okay. And then there's human activities. There's improper tree pruning, there's stubbing and topping, and people just kind of whack off branches where they think it's in their way or whatever. There's mulching with rock and plastic and landscape fabric, which heats the soil and helps to desiccate it more quickly in the summer. And any little bit of moisture that's there, it tends to evaporate. And a lot of people like to have rock mulch around the trees, and it holds the heat after the sun goes down and slowly releases the heat. And as it's doing so, it's desiccating the soil. There's what we refer to as mulch volcanoes, where people pile up mulch against the trunk of the tree. And that leads to tree roots growing out and possibly girdling the tree. Fungus forms in that area where the mulch is keeping the moisture in. Basically, you're supposed to keep mulch away from the tree, not pile it up against the tree. The same with soil, people and rocks. I see this around town where people like to push the soil up against the tree, thinking they're helping by giving it more soil, but the trunk doesn't need the soil, the roots need the soil. Watering is a big issue, especially these past couple of years. Underwatering is a big issue, but also there's some overwatering. I send reminders out to people who get new trees to water their trees, and some of them tell me, well, I've been giving it 10 gallons a day and, morning and night, and they overwater, and that's just as bad because you're drowning the roots, you're suffocating the roots. Inappropriate species, again, the wrong tree in the wrong place. Soil compaction from people walking on the root zone, from vehicles when there's construction and there's big trucks and building materials and things piled on the soil. It compacts the soil, and again, lessens the soil's ability to hold water, drain water, and more importantly, have exchange of gases, oxygen, in the soil zone, in the root zone. Again, construction, trees get banged up sometimes when there's construction or some kind of work going on a property, damaging the bark of the tree. Sometimes there's grade changes. Again, the soil gets piled up or the soil gets dug away and roots are exposed or roots are buried and smothered. Pollutants, contaminants, not only air, but people dump things. Again, in a lot of times during construction projects, painters wash their paintbrushes and dump their solvents and whatever in the tree basin because that's what the place they see where they can do that. Herbicide use. We still have people out there with whatever glyphosate, whatever kind of herbicide spraying to kill weeds. It also affects the trees. I see ropes and wires and chains, and now a lot of holiday Christmas lights around on the trees. And a lot of times these are left there, they're forgotten about. And as the tree grows, it expands in size, and these wires and ropes and things start to strangle the tree. Again, trunk damage. A lot of these things are attached to trees by nails and screws, and people hang signs, don't park in front of my driveway, or lights, safety lights, whatever, are hanging from trees, and they have nails in the trees, which may damage the tree. Vehicles, trucks hitting limbs and doors opening and whacking against the trunk of the tree and causing damage that way. Utility placement, we have water, gas, sewer, electric, drain pipes, vaults for all these different utilities. All these things are underground. We don't see them. We plant the tree there. It needs to be repaired. The contractor comes along and hacks through the roots to do the repair. Staking, not necessarily something that kills the tree, but staking is so a tree can establish roots, and it's not something that's meant to be there for the full life of the tree. After a year, maybe 2 years, stakes should be removed from trees. So those are basic causes that are damaging trees. It's basically hard to pinpoint when I see a dead tree what exactly happened. On occasion, I can see some things where it's a little bit obvious, but most of the time you just find a tree that was in decline and just gave up at some point. So trees are a living, changing part of an ecosystem. They're not just a standalone thing that you stick in the ground and put a little bit of water on it and it's good. It needs a little bit of nurturing, especially in an urban area where they're not getting the nutrients, they don't have the room, they're not getting the moisture that they would in a natural setting. So again, water is a basic need. Property owners should be watering their trees. They're responsible to do that. There's no way for the city to water the 6,000 or so trees that we have on a weekly basis or so during the summer. Too little water, again, is a big problem, although sometimes there's too much water. Beginning with the Measure DD tree plantings, we're going to issue tree watering bags that are 20-gallon bags that you fill up and you leave, and they slow drip into the root zone of new trees to help the roots stay moist and help them to get established. Pruning is something I get a lot of requests to prune the tree because it hasn't been pruned since whenever. And I look at the tree and there's not really a need to prune a tree, but pruning isn't something that you do on a yearly basis or like getting a haircut that you have to go on a regular basis. It's done when it needs to be done, when there's dead, broken, diseased branches. We prune for clearances over the sidewalk, over the street. So it's, shaping up, cleaning up. It's something you can do, but it's not necessarily. And every time you prune a tree, you're inflicting a wound on a tree. You're cutting it open and it has to heal that wound. So that's part of the reasons a lot of trees die. I see it's more species specific. Some species are more sensitive to this kind of pruning. A redbud is a good example. Redbud likes to grow out kind of bushy and at face level, basically. And I see a lot of broken branches or just clipped off randomly. And those branches just die back every time I prune or remove one of those trees, you could see the discoloration from fungal infection or whatever it is that's getting into the trunk of the tree. And it needs to be done properly. It should be done by a qualified person, by hopefully an ISA arborist. Whenever someone requests to have their trees pruned, I make sure that they have an ISA certified arborist doing the work. I get a lot of people, my landscaper did it, my gardener did it. I see posters on poles saying, oh, tree topping. I see trucks advertising tree topping. That's one of the worst things. That's stubbing. That's not what we do for trees. That's a very harmful thing to do to a tree, and that'll kill a lot of trees. Not always, but it shortens their lives when you do that. Or we just get people with tools and a pickup truck who say, I'll do that for $50, and they don't know what they're doing. So you need someone who knows what they're doing. You wouldn't have a carpenter do your dental work for you. So pruning is an art and a science. It's not too difficult. Anybody who wants to prune their own tree, street tree, or on their property, or they're hiring someone, you should do a quick Google search and just understand what proper pruning is. There's a few simple basics that you can tell if somebody knows what they're doing or not. So property owners should be educating themselves. I try to educate people whenever I talk to them about tree work. Mulching, vitamin M is the basic thing. I get a lot of calls. What can I do for my tree? It looks sad. You water it, put down a good layer of mulch. Mulch is going to help retain the moisture. It's going to slow down weed growth. It's going to provide organic matter from microbial activity in the soil, which is how roots work with microbes to help absorb minerals and nutrients in water. You should use a natural plant-based mulch, wood chips, basically. Wood chips are free. You find an arborist or your neighbor had an arborist dump a pile of wood chips and they have way too many, which is usually the case. You use that, you really don't need to pay for wood chips. Rocks, gravel, DG, all those things, they're okay in some instances, but basically they'll dry up the soil. So if you're going to pay attention to your tree and keep it watered, these things are okay, but I don't recommend them. Plastic is really bad. I see a lot of black plastic in the planting strip to suppress weeds, but that plastic in a year or two, it starts breaking up, and then we have pieces of plastic all over the environment, and the weeds are popping through anyway, and it looks really ugly because they put down the plastic, they put mulch on top, a rain or wind comes along, and you see the plastic sticking out, and it's not really the right thing to do. Even the landscape fabric, which is porous, that over time that breaks down and you're having small particles of plastic in the environment, not necessarily harmful for the tree, but not good for our environment in general. We talked about mulching. Basically, you care for the soil to take care of the tree. You're not any kind of plants. You're not taking care of the plant. The soil is what takes care of the plant. So you take care of the soil, and the soil does the work for you. Soil level should be kept at grade when the tree is planted. The root flare should be slightly above grade. It should be kept that way. You don't pile up soil. I mentioned that before. Fertilizer, I get calls where people say, my tree's not looking good, and I gave it some fertilizer, and that's really not what you do. You don't give fertilizer to a sick tree. Fertilizer's for, if there's a known deficiency with the tree, you could give it the proper fertilizer to compensate for that. Or during the growing season, during springtime when a tree is growing and actively needs a lot of nitrogen and these nutrients. Excuse my voice, I'm under the weather a little bit these past couple of days. Let's see. So yeah, fertilizer is not recommended. Basically in our soil, we have a rich, dark clay soil, which is high in nutrient, and fertilizer is not needed in most cases. Too much nitrogen can attract certain insects such as aphids, because it helps to push out that fresh, tender green leaf growth that these insects love. So it attracts them. It also, the artificial chemical fertilizers are basically salts, and they kind of degrade the soil. They kill off microbes, and again, your soil is what takes care of your tree. Compost is basically your tree tonic. Compost provides all the organic material that your tree needs. So trees are living, changing organisms. This is the basic arborist disclosure. You'll see this on a lot of arborist contracts or proposals for work. Trees are living, changing organisms affected by innumerable factors beyond our control. Trees can be managed, but not controlled. Trees fail in ways and because of conditions we don't fully understand. Arborists can't detect or anticipate every condition or event that could possibly lead to the structural failure or decline of a tree. Conditions are often hidden within the tree or below the ground. The bottom line is to work with nature to provide healthy growing conditions. Forcing a tree to behave a certain way will almost always cause harm to it. Nurture a tree by giving it what it needs, but not to excess, just like us. So with that, our recent history, last few years, in 2019, 2020, we planted 106 new trees. We had 13 trees approved for removal that I brought to the commission. And my dead tree survey found 18 dead trees that we removed. And we removed a few pretty large trees that year. Last year, we planted 155 trees. We had 6 trees, is my count. I think that's all that I brought to the commission for removal. So we had 6 trees removed that were approved by the commission. And I didn't do a dead tree survey last year. This year, I did the dead tree survey again. And I came up with 11 trees. There were a couple more, but there were tiny saplings that don't qualify as a tree. It's not less than 3-inch DBH. So a couple of these I just removed. Some of them I just pulled out of the ground. Some of them I leaned against it and it fell over. And so, but they're all on my list. They'll all be replanted. And our new tree planting should be pretty close to last year's or somewhere in between the last 2 years as far as the number of trees that we plant. So to get to the trees, I'm going to run through this quickly. There's an eastern redbud. I'm not sure, I don't have the list in front of me, but I think I had mostly redbuds and cherries. They're sensitive trees, drought, improper pruning, all these things will lead to these trees' demise pretty easily. So we have a 4-inch eastern redbud on Talbot. We have a flowering cherry. This was a pretty good sized tree, and I'm not sure what happened, but again, the cherries are struggling throughout the town. We're not replanting these, although we have a few new ones on the Greenway that seem to be doing all right, but it's a different cultivar than this. I believe these are the Kwanzan cherries. This was a tiny cherry that just never did anything. It never grew, and it eventually died. Crepe myrtle are usually pretty hardy trees, and this one stumped me. I really have no clue why this one might have died. I don't see any kind of abuse to the tree, just something in the ground, possibly. Hard to say what would happen there. Another eastern redbud, again, sensitive species. Washington hawthorn, another one of the flowering trees that really don't do too well, and there have been a lot of them planted through town, but they're small trees, they're short-lived, and they've been struggling with the drought. This one shows some decay down on the lower trunk portion. Another flowering cherry, 2-3-inch DBH. We'll say 3-inch. I threw this one in there, even though it may be less than a 3-inch DBH. Another flowering cherry, a little bit older one, but here you can see where branches die back and the property owner cuts off the dead branches as they die off, or as they think that they're dead. They may or may not have been dead, but eventually that tree gave up. This is the one tree that's a significant tree that we've lost this year. And this, I don't know what happened with this tree. And I noticed this driving down Ordway earlier last year. And later on, the property owner called me and he kind of said the same thing. He said, I don't know what happened. It seemed like one day my tree's green, next day I look out my front door and the tree is totally brown. And he wasn't sure if it was dead or not, but this is a melaleuca, it's an evergreen, and it's dead. So this is the one significant tree that we lost. Then there's the tree on Solano. There's another flowering cherry, and there's a couple others that are struggling along, but I'm trying to keep them going as long as we can. This one, this year, I think put out a few flowers, but then it gave up. And there's all kinds of decay up and down the trunk, and this one was about to fall over, so this one's already gone. And then a Chinese pistache, again, not a mature tree, so I'm not sure what happened here. And then, of course, the last dead tree that we have in our lobby at Public Works here, which is our Christmas tree. So any questions about dead trees or?
Okay, great. Thank you, John. If commissioners could try to raise their hand through Zoom, then that'll help me see who's got questions.
I got one, but I'll raise my hand in case I don't know if anyone else did.
Okay, we'll go and we'll do questions and we'll do public comment, and then we'll do commissioner comments. So we'll start with Commissioner Beal and Commissioner Kent.
Okay, I guess it's kind of starting with a question and then a comment kind of. So we are talking about, when we say dead trees, we're talking about all trees that are in the public right of way. As far as your dead street tree, I guess I'm pretty sure that's true because you went through the list. Do you feel that homeowners are properly educated on, the rights and responsibilities around these trees? Because, it seems to me that people think it's their property. They think the sidewalk is their property and there's like a gray area. Would it maybe help if we had some more education around this? And I myself, by the way, I saw and photographed on the corner of Stanage and Solano, a delivery truck took out 2 huge branches out of the tree. And I got the license plate and everything, but I guess it's probably not a crime. But it seems to me we need more education. I thought maybe you could comment on that.
Yeah, well, it's mixed in the city. Some people understand their responsibility and they understand trees and how to care for them. But it is a gray area also because technically in our municipal code, the property owner is responsible to make sure the trees in safe condition for the public to access the street and the sidewalk. But when a tree is not in that condition, we do the work. We do the clearance so the trucks aren't hitting the trees, so people can walk without being slapped in the face or poked in the eye with tree branches. And if there's broken, dead limbs, whatever, of course, we're going to send somebody out, or I go out and then do remove the tree, the limb. So yes and no. And I think maybe the answer to your question is yes, we need more public education. I think we have our newsletter, and I've been sending out reminders about tree watering, and I'd like to send out a little bit more, but I don't know really how many people get that and read that and who's paying attention or not. So, I'm constantly explaining to people, to property owners, about their responsibility, our responsibility. There's an overlap. I explain that. I explain about the public right of way. You're right. A lot of people think that's their property, or some people think that's all city responsibility, and it's not really. It's a somewhat gray area, and there's mixed responsibility for everything that goes on in that area, including trees.
And the other thing, there's just one more point I had about the watering, and particularly about this, or there's 2 points about watering. One is that we've been told that there's going to be new watering restrictions because of the water, and that it's all maybe up in the air because of the good rain we had. But the other one I want to know is, has the city looked into watering trucks? Because I know I've seen them in some city where the truck just goes around and waters the trees. And I'm just thinking, you know, in terms of like with the sidewalk project and the sidewalk talks, how we saw how it seems to be much more efficient for the city to do these things because it's consistent. The city will do it consistently, whereas homeowners, each one is going to be different. It's just a question of raising the funds. So has the city looked into something like that, or is that just not feasible for us?
It's a little bit difficult. I've considered it with new tree plantings because we have a good record of where those trees are and their age and their needs, but we have such a diverse urban forest, and some trees don't need the frequent watering, some trees need more, some trees need less. We don't have a database. We don't have a functioning database that can tell me these things, and I pull out a report showing you know, where the younger trees are, where certain species are that need more water or need less water. So it's a little difficult, but it is the responsibility of the property owner. When they apply for a tree, they sign a little, there's a little blurb on the application saying that this is your responsibility to take care of it, even though it's considered public property, just like your sidewalk. It's your responsibility, even though it's public property, everybody uses it. So yes, and with the drought, I don't know if you were getting to this, but East Bay Mud recommends you water your trees, drought or no drought. It's important to water trees. Trees help keep the soil moist. That you know, in the long run, I mean, we're a small town. One tree in front of your house may not seem like much, but if everyone thought that way, we'd have no trees. And if everyone thought that I need to keep this alive, we'd have a good urban forest throughout the entire country. And it helps kind of buffer the climate issues that we're going through. So yeah, and you know, if you have a 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 45-year-old tree in front of your house and you don't water it and it dies, you just lost 45 years of work and benefit from that tree. So they have official statements. I have it somewhere on my computer where they're telling people water your tree. Let your lawn die, let your daisies die, but water your tree. So,
Thank you, Commissioner Kent.
Well, I guess so my thought was, it seems like, is this more trees than normal? You had that list of how many trees died 2 years ago, and then last year you didn't do a survey. And I thought that it seems closely related to the drought over the last few years, because most of these trees are small and probably didn't have extensive root system. And I know on Cerrito Street, being that I live there, that one tree, it looks definitely drought stricken, as do many trees on that same side of the road. So even though you had a great list of reasons trees die, can we pretty much think that it's based around the drought?
I think that has a great deal to do with it. Yeah, I mean, the drought is stressing a tree, which may invite other pathogens, insects, whatever. These things kind of, insects will sense in some way. They sense a tree that's struggling. It's an easier target. It's nature, you know, the weaker individual seems to get attacked. The fungus, bacteria, these things are always in the environment. Trees, as well as we are, always fighting these things off. They're there. If we're healthy, we're good. If we're not healthy, they're going to start winning the battle and take over. So the drought definitely has caused some problems. Yeah.
And my other final call, I'm assuming these are all dead, because the pistachio in front of my house went totally dormant last year, lost all its leaves, and then this year it came back. I thought for sure it was dead, but it wasn't. So.
These trees are dead. I did this survey earlier. I do the survey in the summer. So over the winter, you know, if I observe that they don't leaf out, I list it as dead. I also go back and I do the little thumb test or knife test to see if there's any green in the cambium layer on these trees. I had one on Jackson that I don't think was on the list, of a Redbud that I left because I looked at it and I thought, well, maybe it looked okay. A couple little twigs are breaking off. Maybe it just, was stressed and dropped all its leaves as a survival mechanism. But the owner called me up and said, "Oh, my tree's been dead for 2 years." So I went back and I gave it the test, and yeah, it was dead. There was no life in it, no green under the bark. So, yeah, I try to be sure. I don't want to remove any living trees. So.
Hey, thanks, Commissioner Abbott.
I just, something you said caught my attention. You said you used the term good urban forest. How would you evaluate Albany's urban forest? Do you think we're doing well? Do you think we're a pretty healthy urban forest, or do you think we have a lot of work to do?
We're good, I would say. We have a lot of good trees. We have a lot of young trees. We've lost, a few dozen trees over the past few years, or while I've been here. It's not unusual in an urban area. Basically, you cycle out trees, especially in the past. It seems like we planted a lot of trees that were not the right species. These huge trees in a little tiny planting strip. Some cities, when this tree gets to the point where it starts cracking the sidewalk, or it seems like that's it, it doesn't have any more room to grow, it gets removed. Some cities will do that. Some cities will open up the basin a little bit wider. We don't have that much room to open up on our sidewalks, We do where we can. When we do sidewalk repair, or someone is doing their own sidewalk repair, I recommend that you arc out the sidewalk away from the tree trunk to give the tree a little bit of room, but there's not a real lot of room to give them in Albany. So basically, I don't know, some days I'm driving around town and it looks beautiful, and some days I say, oh my God. I think that's when it's been really hot and dry and I'm just worried about it. But we didn't do too bad. 2 years ago, I had a bigger list and there were bigger trees, but that's because there were lots of trees that I never paid attention to. And I decided to go through and look at everything, look at every street and find where these dead trees are so we could get them out and start over again, start with new trees. So hopefully all these trees we're planting are going to take and hold, and people take care of them. I think people are paying more attention and taking better care of trees and understanding the importance of trees a little bit more. And I'm fairly optimistic about the future of our urban forest. So.
All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Amenderies and then Commissioner Chang Frank.
Hi, John. I heard you say that the new plantings for this year were kind of on par for previous years, and I had a question about that because I guess I was under the assumption that Measure DD would be allowing for the planting of even more trees. Is that not true?
Well, I expected that, but we really didn't get. So far, we have 40 trees requested for the Measure DD. I've had a lot of people talk to me, email me, and ask me about it. And I say, yeah, send the application, and I don't hear back from them. But I don't know. I sent out the first list, which were apps that were paid for, and that's in process now. That's going to start planting soon. This first Measure DD batch is going to go out for bid next week probably, and we'll try to get that done soon. And then after that, I don't know if I get more, I'll squeeze them in. If not, I won't. I'll have to save them for next year. But and then there's another project, which are the replacement trees for trees removed and dead, and it's basically city trees. So I had the paid apps, the Measure DD, and the city planting three different projects. There's really not that much room for new trees. We're doing a lot of concrete removal for Measure DD, and that's costing way more than just planting a tree where there's already a tree basin established, which is fine. The more basins we establish, the more trees we'll have, hopefully in perpetuity, because if there's a tree there once, there should always be a tree there. But so far, yeah, 40 trees. If it weren't for DD, we'd probably have maybe half the trees of last year. So I don't know. I don't know why that is.
Okay. Thanks, Commissioner Chang Frank.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for this presentation, John. One thing, just in response to the last comment about the number of trees, I expected there should be more coming down the line, right? Because it really did just open up. I'm just thinking that there may be residents who haven't even heard of it yet. So it might catch on, I'm hoping. But I'm really happy to hear about concrete removal. I didn't realize that that was part of the plan. So that's really fantastic. And I think that, yeah, fine to just do concrete removal this first, right? And then eventually we'll get more trees in. I just did have one question. Well, and then also in terms of, I noticed this trying to look like the smaller trees were the ones, mostly small trees were the ones that died in this batch. And, in some ways it's better than being a beautiful canopy tree, large one that would otherwise be healthy. So, but I'm wondering, in terms of education, if it's something, I know, Isabel, this would be something to communicate with the city manager, but just some announcements to say, hey, did you know that it's drought time. So it'd be great if you could water your street tree in front of your home. It's just sort of an ask of the community. I'd be happy to post that on like Facebook groups of Albany parents and things like that. I'm just thinking just an awareness campaign every now and then when it looks like the trees need a little more water, because for the most part, like my street trees in front of my house are very low maintenance. We don't water them and they're thriving. So I'm just thinking of things that we can do just to make people aware, because they might be happy to do that if they know that they should. And then finally, I did have a question about one of the trees, the flax leaf paperback. It was paper bark. I think it was the biggest one. I'm wondering, was that related at all to, or was there a adjacent sidewalk repair for that tree?
At that address, I don't think that, I'm pretty sure there was not.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to sort of note when that happened, if that's ever an outcome of the sidewalk repairs, like, 2 years later, the tree dies. So
yeah,
that's
last year we had one. We had a large camphor tree, a full mature camphor tree that died. That I think the property owner had the sidewalk repaired there, and they had it curved away, but the tree still died. And I think that tree was just over mature to begin with. But
okay, thanks. Thank you.
If I may add something about the free street trees, they are advertised in our new activity guide that is coming out. So every resident is going to get to, hopefully, if they open the activity guide, they will see that the availability of free street trees is available.
Well, if we don't get more rain this year, we might have a large planting project for next year.
Okay, I had a few questions real quick. One was to remind residents of what is being done with Measure DD, and it sounds like people have already done that. But also to remind us, so is the basic idea that the application itself is free and the entire process is free for residents to get new street trees, is that correct?
Yes, it's pretty simple. The application's on our website, fill it out and send it to me. That's all you need to do.
All right. And then another question was, I can think of a number of other trees that have been removed that are city trees, but they're not street trees. So for example, at the end of Castro where Jackson is, there's a hillside there. Albany Hill, of course, there's all kinds of things going on there. Is there a report you can give later in the year on trees in parks and other public property that have been removed?
I think I brought those to the commission already, the Jackson Triangle area. We talked about that. They'll be replaced where we can fit trees. I looked at that recently and I don't want to overplant. I'm looking at what's remaining there, a lot of live oaks and some buckeyes that seem to be doing well, and they're going to maybe fill that area, but if there's room there, I'm going to get some more trees in there. The hill is not my domain. That's separate, and Margot is working on that, and she's got plans to, you know, I'm not sure where we're at now. We removed a dozen or so trees there so far, but as trees get removed, there's a lot of trees native that are there that are going to bloom out once they have room to breathe and grow. But she has plans. She's looking into different species that might be suitable for the monarch butterflies that come to the hill every year. So she's looking into that.
All right. And then let's see. I had a question. You mentioned mulch, and mulch was important. We heard from Public Works recently that the state was going to require a lot more composting, and the city was going to be receiving like way more mulch and wood chips than it knows what to do with. So
Yeah.
Are there any things that homeowners can do to take advantage of that, or would messages be going out to homeowner or to residents?
I'm sure we'll be pushing mulch on everyone when this happens. I think it's based on population and not land size, which doesn't really make sense when you're talking about mountains of mulch. But yeah, we're going to be encouraging people to. I'm not sure what our mechanism is going to be at this point. Right now, we have a couple piles around town that kind of come and go, you know, as it's available. But we'll be encouraging people to use a lot of mulch. Yeah.
Okay, and my last question before we get to further questions or to public comment is, are there recommendations you have for future agenda items for the commission or for changes in city practices that would help street trees better for this coming year?
For this coming year?
In the future, going forward.
In the future, I have a lot of recommendations, and I don't know if these are things I bring to the commission or what the process would be to. For one thing, we talked about a master tree plan, an ordinance, a tree ordinance. Most cities have something. We have one little blurb in our municipal code about tree responsibility, but we should have a full-blown tree ordinance that would serve as your tree manual, basically. And, you know, it's a place where people can go to understand what their responsibility is, what the city's is, and you know, how to deal with trees in front of your house. We need a database too. We've been working on trying to get something that's going to work with our existing, our mapping that we have. We need to modernize a little bit, but those are the two major things I think. From there, everything else would be included within, you know, within a tree ordinance and within an active, a workable database. It's pretty important to really manage and plan and foresee needs for the future.
Okay, so we should discuss that when we get to future agenda items. Isabella, have you been able to take notes on some of that? Okay, great. All right, so let's get to the public comment and then we'll do some discussion. See, we have one person with their hand raised.
Hi, good evening, everybody. It's Jeremiah here.
Okay.
Hey, so arborists, I think you're doing a pretty good job with these things. Remember a few meetings back, I mentioned maybe possibly we can get like a birthday and that database going. You know, every time we plant a tree, that way from now on, we actually have the date, you know, the birthday of the tree, the planted date kind of thing. Hopefully maybe in Measure DD funds, there might be some money for a little software program. That way we can have a map, you know, of all the trees in Albany. You can probably like, you know, click on a tree. It'll say how old it is. It'll say what kind it is. I just envision a really cool software program with all the trees in Albany. Like let's say there's lemon trees. You know, someone has a lemon tree in their front yard or as a street tree. They could put it on there and then people know where the lemon trees are in Albany. and they can just go walk around the block and pick a lemon, or an apple tree or something. So there's that. And then also we're talking about the sidewalk and the street tree in front of the house. Can you please just go over the facts of whose responsibility it is? I know the sidewalk is 50-50, 50-50%. So my question is, who's responsible for watering the tree? I think you did just discuss that, but who pays the bill? Oh, and the other funny part is you were talking about how East Bay Mud, suggests watering their trees. Well, duh. East Bay Mud sells water. Of course they're going to tell you to water the tree. Oh boy. Anyway, so there's a few trees on Solano. I've mentioned it before. I'm going to throw it out there again. In front of my office in 1021 Solano, there's this huge bay tree, or a species resembling a bay leaf tree, right? Eucalyptus, okay? Now, when it's windy, those branches from that tree, they drop like spears, like a spear being thrown, okay? And I've taken so many pictures of these big, huge branches on the sidewalk. And gosh, aren't we lucky that branch did not land on a female jogging, pushing her baby in a stroller. And that same tree, the trunk sticks out like a foot in the street. So every single car that parks in that parking space, they lose a passenger side mirror. And I'm one of them. And I want my money back.
Thank you. John, are there some things you can respond to there?
Well, the bit about responsibility, it's the property owner's responsibility to water the tree. It's also technically their responsibility. As I mentioned earlier, everything in the public right-of-way, sidewalk, trees, plants, benches, whatever you have there, it's their responsibility. But the city has jurisdiction over that. So we could say, you can't put a bench in front of you. You can't set up a tent in front of your house in the sidewalk. You can't plant the redwood tree in front of the sidewalk, in the sidewalk planting strip. So yeah, basically there's no 50-50. There's been 50-50 sidewalk repair deals in the past, but now we have a sidewalk repair project, which is a service to the community that the city does. Just like tree planting, we're paying for the tree, but it's a service to the community. You have a tree in front of your house, it increases your property value somewhat, and you get multiple benefits from the tree as it grows, that come with the tree. So you have some responsibility to take care of that tree. As far as paying for water, it's I don't think East Bay Mud is in it to profit from watering trees. I think they want us to keep our trees alive. So they benefit all of us, not just the property owner or East Bay Mud or whoever. They benefit all of us.
What about a census of trees that he brought up? Is that that's something you mentioned as well that we lack? Is that something city staff could do, or is that something that consultants would need to be hired for, or what?
I think typically you hire a consultant to do that kind of work. You need to have some knowledge of trees. You need to get tree species down and their measurements, and be able to do a quick observation of the tree and estimate its health and its needs and that sort of thing. That's what would be in a database. We have something like that, like Jeremiah was talking about on Google Maps, where you can click on a tree and it pops up a picture of the tree and a little bit of information about the tree, but it's very out of date. And I have no practical way of updating this thing or working with it really at the moment. So there's two sets of data. One's very old, one's a little old. So, But yeah, we need something like that. And it would be an initial inventory of all the trees by someone who understands trees and knows how to collect that data.
Okay, well, it sounds like that could be a future agenda item to discuss how that might happen. Okay, other discussion from commissioners? All right, seeing none, thank you so much, John. Next up, we have item 6, discussion and possible action on matters related to the following items. Commission will nominate and elect chair and vice chair. And I wanted to say thank you all for having me as your chair for the last year and ushering through the parks master plan and the measure proposition 68 and on all those kind of things that were on our docket. I look forward to the new year with whoever is the chair and vice chair. And Isabel, can you give us the basic parameters of how we do this?
Yes, so you want to start by doing nominations for the chair. And if there are more than one nomination, then you vote on the last nomination made for the chair. And then you'll make a motion once the chair is selected and move on to the vice chair.
Okay, so do you have any nominations? Can you self-nominate?
Yes.
Okay, so do we have any nominations or self-nominations for chair for the coming year?
I would like to nominate Chair Martin for another year if you're open to it. I think you did an excellent job.
Okay. Seeing as everyone else took one step back, I would be open for that, but I'm also, if anybody else wants to take a turn, that's fantastic.
So that said, I'll go, oh, wait. I'll second the nomination.
Okay. Should we do a roll call vote or yes? Okay. Sid, if you could do that.
I'm sorry, wait, back to the procedure though. Isabel said we go through all the nominations. Is that right? Or we do it one at a time?
Well, since there's one nomination, then we can proceed with a motion for that nomination since it's been seconded.
But we don't ask for more nominations first.
Well, I think it's been asked already. Yes. And no one nominated anyone else.
Oh, okay. So I was going to nominate myself in that case. Could I still nominate myself?
I thought that might be where that was going.
Okay, sure. All right. So we have 2 nominees. How do we vote on that, Isabel?
So we need you start with voting on the last nomination. So that would be Commissioner Beal's nomination. So Sid, you can do a roll call on that nomination.
Can you vote for both?
And what we're looking for is a yes or a no, correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. On Commissioner Beal. Commissioner Abbott?
Oh, man, boy. I'm going to say yes.
Commissioner Armendariz?
No.
Commissioner Beal?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank?
I actually really appreciate Chair Martin's role this last year, and I would, if there were, I'd be happy for him to be chair, but I do want to give others a chance. So I'd love to see Commissioner Beal step up. So I'm going to say yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Well, since I nominated Chair Martin, I'm going to stick with Chair Martin. No offense, Commissioner Beal. No.
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
And Chair Martin.
Yes.
Okay, so the nomination passes. So I think we have a new chair.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just say I'm completely with Commissioner Chang Frank there, Brian. I just a new voice. So give somebody else a chance. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So now we look for nominations for vice chair.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to nominate Brian Martin.
Others, you can self-nominate or nominate someone else.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Chang Frank.
Okay.
This is going to be funny. I actually don't. I'd like to decline. I'd rather not. But I would like to nominate Commissioner Armendariz for
It's funny.
for the same reasons that I mentioned before. New voice. So.
Okay. Other nominations. Okay, seeing none. So we have me and Commissioner Armendariz. So Isabel, how do we proceed?
You proceed with the last nomination, which was Commissioner Armendariz.
Commissioner Abbott.
Yes.
Commissioner Armendariz.
Can I abstain? Do I have to?
You can vote for yourself.
I'll say no.
Commissioner Beal.
Just a moment. Then if you're declining,
You can decline.
yeah, if you're declining, then the commission needs to find well, I guess you can continue with the vote, but I think we just need to move on with the next nomination then, if you're declining the vice chair.
Okay. Yeah, I'll decline.
Okay. Okay, so then we proceed with the nomination for Commissioner Martin.
Here we go. Commissioner Abbott.
Yes.
Commissioner Armendariz.
Yes.
Commissioner Beal.
Yes, and save me from a difficult decision.
Commissioner Chang Frank.
Very happily, yes.
Commissioner Kent.
Yes.
Commissioner Price.
Yes.
Commissioner Martin.
Yes. Okay. So, great. So now, let's see. So does Commissioner Beal take over on January 20th, or is it or now, or the next meeting, or what?
It's up to the commission. It's up to you.
Okay.
To the commission.
Okay.
If there were more things, more items to the meeting, usually the chair will take the new chair will take over. But since there's only one more item.
Okay. I'll just round it out here. I've got the agenda in front of me. So next up, we've got future agenda items. Commissioners announce requests for future agenda items. So agenda item requests.
Can I go, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah, so on the item we just discussed, and Commissioner Chang Frank and I had similar ideas. I think this is something we should try to get moving on, that, or at least just have a discussion about it at a future meeting. It is about the topic of some sort of education campaign around street trees. And, you know, I had a lot of thoughts went through my head, you know, listening to the forester talk about, you know, the process and how he was getting these applications and then they fell through and everything about it. I think, you know, and as a commission, we can't really, you know, decide something like that in, you know, the span we had today. So I think it would be a good a good future agenda item, and I'll let Commissioner Chang Frank maybe expand on that unless she has something else.
No, yeah, I think that's, I think I had long ago was like the sole subcommittee member for education for the street tree, and I never really, it never took off. So I definitely would agree that that'd be a nice thing to have another agenda item for, plan it out a little bit.
And is it still on our work plan? I know that the work plan went through some permutations from the version I have, but providing input on tree preservation education campaign, is that kind of what we're talking about? Yeah, I mean, that would just make it easy if it's already on the work plan.
I think it's already on there. I don't think we took it off. Yeah.
Yeah. So just bringing that up, I think it's great.
Okay. Other future items. I'd request some that came from the others from the tree discussion. So how the city can get an updated census of trees, and take on any other recommendations that John had. So I don't know exactly what that agenda item or series of agenda items would be, but so that would be one. Also, I think we should look at revisiting our work plan, given that we've now going to be sort of maintaining / shepherding, Prop 68 through, and just sort of overseeing some of those, what the city's doing with that. And we have a new work plan. So, and the city council has asked, we were the first commission to get our work plan approved, as I understand it. And there were some objections to how our work plan was structured, but we got it passed. And then every other commission has had to do a few iterations to make it look a new way and focus on sort of fewer items. And so I think it would be an opportunity to kind of go through that process as well.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that work plan. It kind of relates to what I was hoping to talk about, which is if we, I don't know, Isabel, if we'll have the recreation master plan, if it's an agenda item for the city council meeting, do you expect it'll be just approved at that point? Or you don't know yet?
No, I don't know. So
Okay.
we have to wait until it goes to council and council takes action.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But since it's been one round, it could potentially, and I'm just thinking if we had an opportunity to talk about next steps, if the city council approves. So if it doesn't pass, or if it's not approved by the next meeting, perhaps a future meeting, but if we do it, I'd love to get started on that conversation. So.
And Isabel, is there anything that's coming up which should be on our docket in the next few months?
I believe Margot is going to come to the meeting to make her presentation on open space and her work on Albany Hill. But that's probably more at the March meeting.
And then how about Prop 68? As that goes through the system, will that mostly be through staff announcements, or are there some things that will come before our commission?
As we work through the projects, when there's something that needs to come to the commission, we'll bring it to you. At this time, we're still in the application process, so I don't have a clear vision for what would come to the commission at this time.
Okay. All right. Other future agenda item ideas? Okay. Seeing none. Our next meeting is Thursday, February 10th, and meeting's adjourned. Thank you all, and good luck, Commissioner Beal.
Good night, everybody.